Okay, thank you. And given that I just pushed the record button, if anybody does want to make comments and does not want to have that recorded for whatever reason, please just let me know and we can work that out. Not a problem at all. Okay, so back to the slide. I know there's a lot of information on here, but we started back, well, before even I joined Issaquah. So Alan started off the Storm Surface Water Master Plan kickoff meeting with regulatory agencies, nonprofits, and the city back in December 19. And then that followed up with in January and February of 2020 with a community online survey and a workshop where really this really talk about kicking off. This is really the start of it, where we had the community and staff and others, elected officials, identify our problem areas across the city in terms of flooding, water quality, and habitat. Then, as we all may remember, COVID happened, and that's why there was that and other reasons, but there was a pretty big break until the next step. And that occurred after I joined the Issaquah team. And we had a series of board and commission and city council meetings on an overview, the basin conditions, and identified problems focused on the Storm and Surface Water Master Plan. And again, those identified problems, which I called out, really did come from the community. And if you've been involved in the other meetings or want to look back, you may remember that there's over 300 problems, again, across the city that were identified. So then our next step, for various reasons, partly through COVID, partly through staffing, partly through good timing, we merged the Storm and Surface Water Master Plan and Wastewater Master Plan, and in terms of the strategic framework. So we hosted a series of meetings again with the Environmental Board, Parks Board, City Council, Planning and Policy Commission. We also wrote a memo to the Economic Vitality Commission about the focus areas, purpose, and objectives for that strategic plan that centered around, again, water resources related to wastewater, stormwater, and water. And lastly, earlier this month, we talked about the Storm and Surface Water Master Plan and the Wastewater Master Plan in terms of capital projects. So that's what we're kind of breaking out now. We're going forward. We're going to be individualizing the master plans with their focus on our capital or infrastructure planning. And then tonight's meeting again is going to be on our strategies related to the Water Resources Strategic Plan. And again, strategies and then actions, and these, the easy way to think about this is non-capital, but what does that mean? Policy and code updates, operating programs, education and outreach programs, maintenance and operational activities. So really everything that's non-capital, we're forming strategies with. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay, taking just a step back again to try to differentiate the master plans from the strategic plans and how they work together. And again, Alan and Matt both noted earlier, they're both the leads, Alan for the stormwater, Matt for the wastewater. Very different systems, of course, but really the master plans cover similar topics: system description, basin characteristics, the problem identification, problem prioritization, and then the recommended capital projects that again tie back to those highest priority problems. And again, those of you that have been in earlier meetings will recognize this as our strategic framework, where we've already talked about the focus areas. Those are the categories describing the work we'll be doing. The purpose, which is our underlying reason for doing this work. The objectives, what we plan to accomplish. So those, you've seen those, or you can go back and look at those at earlier meetings. We've had those in detail. And then tonight, number 4, Dave is going to be, and Francesca will be talking about our strategies. And then after we get your input and go through the board and commissions, we'll be coming back with metrics and then the actions that will be, again, the end product. And then my final slide here, again, is what I guess the impression I want to leave on you today is that these are all 3 documents: the stormwater and surface water master plan, the wastewater master plan, and the strategic plan are living and breathing documents. These are not just going to go on the shelf and never be looked at again. They are integral part of our work. So using this year as an example, and starting on the left-hand side here, we are going to be completing the master plans and the strategic plan. And then those really feed our budget development review and approval process with council. So the capital projects and our programs that you will see in the council budget document will all come from this work that we'll be presenting tonight and that we have presented earlier this year and last year. And then there's implementation, of course. After the budget's approved, we're going to be moving forward with these projects and programs. And on an annual basis, even though the budget cycle is moving to 2 years, we're going to be reviewing our performance. Are these capital projects, are these programs getting us to the results we want? Assessing that, and then we go back, right? We go back to our master plans, we go back to the strategic plans and develop new proposals every year or other year for council based on this great work that we did now and new information that comes. So this is really, a cycle that we're starting with these plans, tonight. And again, just what I really want to emphasize: living, breathing documents. We will update these as needed, but we're drawing from these. And then the last piece on this that I don't have listed, I didn't want to make it even more busier, but the intent of both of the 2 master plans and the strategic plans, they are umbrella, or they fall under the umbrella of the comprehensive plan and the city strategic plan. So anything you see here really should be in concert with those 2. That we're not going on a different path. These projects and programs are to be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and the strategic plan, and that's kind of what we're vetting with you and with the boards and commissions and the councils. So Dave, with that, let me just unshare, and before you start, Dave, let me just ask if there's any questions, comments, concerns from anybody on the introductory remarks that I made at this point in time. And again, you can send me a chat or just raise your hand and unmute. All right, we'll think that silence is a good thing in this case, since it was just introductory. But please feel free. We can go back to anything that I presented at the end of the presentation or at any time. All right, Mr. Jacobs, I'm going to hand the baton off to you.
Great. Thanks, Gary, for walking through all that. Okay, so today, as Gary mentioned, we're going to be going through the strategies. Have a quick agenda here just to kind of walk through everything that I'm going to be covering. So we're going to go back through the framework just really quick. We're going to discuss the community input that we're seeking today. We're going to go through the area diagrams. And then at the end, if we have time, which we're going to be tracking that to make sure we do, we're going to do a prioritization of the strategies in a mural program that we have. And so as we kind of work through this, if we get into some good dialogue, we might need to cut it short just so that we can continue so we can get to that prioritization at the end. But as Gary said, this information will be shared out to you all for additional comment and dialogue. Okay. Uh-oh. There we go. So as the focus areas, purpose, and objectives have been completed, today we're really focusing in here on the strategies, the pathways we will take to deliver on the objectives. As Gary kind of showed with that plan cycle that he had, the metrics and the actions of the strategies will be kind of updated as the efforts continue to move forward. And that might be, taking the top priorities that we come up with this year to implement those, and then into the future, the other ones will be getting updated. Okay, and so from the community input, what we're looking for today is please review the proposed strategies and provide the following feedback to help inform the city's prioritization efforts. And so we're looking for input on potentially missing strategies, input on clarity of proposed strategies, and then your support in identifying the top strategies that resonate with your understanding of the city's needs. And so that's at the end with the mural exercise, which is another program that you'll all be able to go into and vote, where we'll be looking for that opportunity. As we go into the focus areas, we will go through all 6 of them. There's 6 up on the screen right now. As we present each area, we'll take an opportunity to see if there's any questions or comments on those before we move forward to the next. So we'll jump into the transparent community engagement. I will walk through kind of everything that we've developed just so everyone is aware of it. So the purpose is to engage with the community to build strong partnerships and develop education and outreach opportunities between public, private, and residential entities. The first objective in this is to improve implementation of city's existing communication framework. There's already a framework in place, and I think what we're looking at is for the utility to figure out how to really engage with that and really take advantage of what's there. The 5 strategies that we have for that is to develop a clear framework for presenting environmental projects to boards and commissions for approval and for their input. Strategy number 2 is to develop a process to explain the level of services provided by the utilities and costs associated with maintaining the levels of service. And so that would be developing a process to really communicate out to the public of what are the level of services and those associated costs. Number 3 is to add utility capital improvement plan projects to the existing city's public capital improvement plan maps. There's maps already, and so looking to bring the public works information into that. Create water quality maps to inform the public of the status of the city's water bodies, and then to create volunteer programs for the public to actively engage in improving the natural habitat of the city. This came up in one of the board meetings, and we thought it was a great one. And some examples are, trash mobs, fish counting, tree planting, etc. Some really good potential ideas. Objective number 2 is to collaboratively deliver community education programs throughout the city. I think instead of the city's departments all doing the education exercises individually, it's looking for opportunities to share. And for this one is to develop a citywide coordinated education and outreach program focused on living with nature. And so those are you can go back to kind of the full screen and see if there's any questions or thoughts on these ones. Perfect. I'll take silence as you guys are reading through them. Okay. So the next one we'll jump into is responsibly manage existing utility assets. The purpose of this is to sustainably operate and maintain the public storm and sewer infrastructure consistent with the city's established level of service between public, private, that's a carryover. The objectives here are to improve responsive effectiveness under emergency situations to better ensure continuity of operations. The strategies are to prepare utility-specific emergency plans and incorporate them into overall city response planning. Strategy number 2 is to perform an infrastructure criticality review to inform emergency planning and future capital improvement plan development. Objective number 2 is to proactively manage existing system performance to maintain expected level of service. The strategies for this one are develop a closed circuit television program to proactively review the storm and sewer conveyance system for defects. Then using that information, create a rehab program targeted at replacement of aging and substandard conveyance infrastructure based on that CCTV program results. Finally, is to focus on improving sewer capacity through reduction of I&I, which is inflow and infiltration. That's water that kind of soaks in through the pipes. The third objective is to participate in regional efforts to enhance the delivery of utility services. The first strategy here is to coordinate emergency response planning with adjacent cities and counties. The second strategy is to develop a joint system operation planning framework with adjacent cities, King County, and utility districts to share resources and ideas. The last one here is reduced localized flooding. This is one that came up in several board meetings and with the different commissioners. And this was one that we've added in based on those, the feedback from those. The first strategy here is to routinely update the city's baseline understanding of flood hazard zones throughout the city. The second strategy is to develop a root cause analysis of local flooding issues so that the city understands where the problems are and what is the cause of those problems. Both of those information will feed into future master plan efforts. So is there any questions on that one? Okay. We'll jump into collaboratively plan future utility needs. The purpose of this one is to coordinate across city programs and processes to plan and build city infrastructure in an efficient and safe manner based on expressed community values and best available engineering and science forecasting. First objective is to coordinate utility planning with other city programs and departments. The first strategy is to develop a planning framework to identify opportunity projects between city departments. Second strategy is to update utility system master planning every to be determined years. We haven't figured that out, to allow other departments updated opportunities for coordination. The second objective is to cultivate collaborative relationships with regulatory community to facilitate effective communication. The strategy here is to establish training with regulatory agencies to align priorities with current initiatives and expectations for the city. Objective number 3 is budget for full lifecycle maintenance costs and staffing needs when building new city infrastructure. The strategy is to develop a budgeting framework that incorporates proposed infrastructure operations and maintenance costs and staffing needs into future city budgets. That effort is already currently included in the design process, but this is to take it to the next level to make sure it gets to the budgets. The final objective is to develop a strategic asset management plan focused on a 40-year horizon. The strategies here are to identify and implement an asset management software that allows for proactive management of the city's assets. Second is to develop a strategic asset management plan on a 40-year horizon to drive a maintenance, rehab, and replace schedule for all systems. The third is to develop or expand asset management plans for each key asset type to define specific operations of maintenance recommendations, standardized facility inspection protocols, and assist performance goals of all city-owned utility assets. Are there any questions on this focus area? Great, moving forward. The fourth one is to invest in the employee experience. The purpose is to invest in the city's workforce to provide further development, consistent support, and the capacity to serve the city's needs and obtain the city's strategic goals. The first objective is to invest in people training beyond safety needs and accreditation to support recruiting and retaining a skilled and diverse workforce. The strategy here is to create a staff-based certifications and credentials tracking process that identifies training needs and creates incentives for obtaining crucial certifications. The second objective is to utilize the asset management strategy that was talked about earlier to drive future staffing needs. The strategy here is to develop a budgeting framework that incorporates staffing needs based on the asset management planning that we discussed earlier. Objective number 3 is to continue supporting an innovative hybrid work environment. The strategies here are to identify equipment necessary for staff to effectively complete tasks from different work environments. The second strategy is to define workplace expectations associated with position and job requirements, so everyone is clear on their expectations. Any comments on this focus area? Okay, moving to natural resource protection. The purpose of this one is to protect and restore the natural environment based on the city's strategic goals, best available science, and expressed community values. The first objective is to protect existing stream and wildlife habitat. The strategy is to prepare a stream and habitat protection program that identifies critical sensitive opportunities within the city that allows for partnerships and acquisitions of sensitive parcels when available. Restore degraded stream and wildlife habitat. The first strategy is to develop a fish passage program that is focused on identifying and removing blockages and barriers throughout the city. The second strategy is to create a capital improvement plan priority list for restoration projects. This one is focused mostly on to allow for there's opportunities that arise. The third objective within this one is to protect the CARA through responsibly managing utility assets. The CARA is the Critical Aquifer Recharge Area. The first strategy is to collaborate with other city departments to create guidelines for permissive actions within the Critical Aquifer Recharge Area boundary. The second strategy is to incorporate planning for treating pollution generating impervious surface, PGIS, within the Critical Aquifer Recharge Area boundary into the utility master plan process. The next objective is to eliminate high priority septic systems within the city's environmental critical areas. 3 strategies here are to implement improvements to the private septic system inspection and reporting program, develop a robust city water quality sampling plan to support failing septic systems, and to reduce existing on-site septic systems use in critical areas. The last objective is to have a citywide water quality monitoring assessment. The strategy here is to improve citywide water quality monitoring and assessment to better inform utility system master planning. This is another one that came up in the board meetings, and we've incorporated that into our objectives. Any questions on this focus area? Great. Moving on to the last one, which is fiscal responsibility. The purpose of this is to develop a fiscal plan to support meeting our defined service levels within an affordable rate structure. The first objective is to sustainably budget for full lifecycle costs and staffing needs associated with the existing and future systems. Strategies here are to prepare a city budgeting framework that incorporates full lifecycle operations and maintenance costs and expected staffing needs based on proposed infrastructure implementation and strategic asset management planning. The second is to define level of service and costs associated with maintaining different levels of service with associated impacts. The second objective is to identify and leverage other funding sources. The first strategy is to develop a grant tracking process that identifies potential funding sources and key requirements to obtain funding. For example, submittal dates, project requirements, matching funds required, etc. The second strategy is to work with other city departments to identify public-private partnership opportunities to improve or expand existing utility systems. So that is all for that one, if there's any questions or not. Great. Hopefully those were all clear. And like Gary said, we will be, the city will be sending those out to you after this for your review and kind of additional feedback. I know it's a lot of information to try to digest all at once. I was trying to go through it slow enough for you all. I think the next effort is to—
Dave, could I say one thing before you go into
Please.
the mural?
Yeah.
That this was similar to the earlier meeting in February on our capital work. It's a lot of information. This is a lot to digest. And I guess I just want to remind everybody, going back to that plan, do, assess cycle, there's probably enough work to be, assuming everybody agrees with all the strategies and all the capital projects, giving the staffing that we have and the rates that we have, this is 10 to 20 years worth of work.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, it's overwhelming to me, but when I look at each one of the projects we've talked about earlier in February and all these strategies, I'm very excited. I believe they all are very valid. But we do need to prioritize, and that's kind of the next step. But I just wanted to step back and say it could be overwhelming. It likely is overwhelming because we are throwing a lot at you, and that is the intent of these plans, is to provide that really big view, that 10 to 20-year view, given what we know now, what we'd like to address on your behalf and resolve on your behalf. Knowing that in 5 years, some of these may be much important or maybe not be important at all. But this is really what we know today. So that's why I just kind of request your patience with the maybe potentially the overwhelming nature of all this information. But it's not all to do at once. Believe me, I wish we could in some ways if everybody's on board. But that's why we are going to go into this prioritization next. But we feel it's best to share that worldview, right? Our worldview with you at that very high level. So then we can create this dialogue, and what Dave's going to lead next on. What is most important to you, important to the city right now, the next, 2 to 6 years? That's really what we're trying to get out. Ones that won't be chosen, they're going to stay in the plan, and we'll come back to them. As again, I go back to believe these are all worthy efforts, but it is about back to what is most important to you, what is most important to our city. So Dave, I hope that kind of helped bring that perspective, because I really appreciated all the information, but it was a lot.
Yeah, no, it definitely is a lot. And I think, kind of putting that in perspective of, it is about a 20-year vision, I think, to really develop and implement a lot of these programs, right? Because these programs do take some time to implement at the city. And so this next effort is to look at what are the priorities that we should be looking at, that the city should be looking at. I included a link to a mural in the chat. The chat box is down in the bottom right-hand corner.
Yep.
If everyone clicks on that, you don't need to log into anything. It will bring you straight to a mural, which is another software program that will allow you to kind of interact, and we can do some voting over there. Again, this is the purpose of this is to just kind of get your feedback on where you feel the important aspects are for the city to be focused on. Let me share my screen just so we can walk through a couple things here.
Yeah, Dave, let me just add that if, you know, I do have two screens, so it's easy for me to do this. If anybody is just having a hard time toggling between things, we, you know, we'll take your just input verbally or just through the chat. So just let us know if you're having any trouble looking at things. So we're kind of here to serve you guys.
And then if you hover over, my picture should be down in the bottom. And if you say, you should be able to hover over that and say, follow me. And then you will follow my screen. So whatever I'm looking at, you'll be looking at. Otherwise, you could feel free to roam around the page. I did want to put some information on here about just how to use Mural. And so if you press your left mouse button on the screen, you'll move it around. Just press and hold it and it will move around. If you have a wheel on your computer, you can zoom in and out with that, and that will zoom in and out of the screen. If you want to leave a comment on anything, which is definitely would be appreciated, you can just double click. And if you double click on the screen, it will add a post-it note, and then you can type inside that post-it note with any comments that you have if you think rewording of something should happen or anything like that. Once you're done, you can move that around the screen by holding it and left clicking it. And then you can move that around the screen. I think those are the most important items. The second thing I want to do is if you can look and locate the sampling voting, which is down on the left-hand side. So once we do voting, I'll open up a voting session. You guys will be able to vote. And on this particular one, I'm asking for, what is your favorite color? And so I will open a voting session. If you left click on it, you're going to vote for it. If you hold the shift button and click, you will take your vote away. And so you can revote. And so I'm going to open that voting session now. I'll give everybody 2 votes so you can kind of practice and see what that looks like. Okay. And so now you can click on whatever your favorite color is. Nobody's going to see that until the end.
All right, I voted. And I did remove vote too. I got too excited and I did same color twice.
Maybe that's just your favorite color. Okay. And then here at the end, so right now you don't see anyone else's votes that are happening. And then when we end the voting session, it will actually pop up and show that everyone liked the dark pink, is that what we're calling it? Fuchsia, maybe? Fuchsia color, followed by the blue. And so those were the two highest voting solutions. So that was great. So the next session we are going to do, and so what the plan is now, is to give you guys some time to read through the different strategies that are in play over here and their objectives. And then ideally, if you could vote on kind of what you feel are your top 10 different strategies that you feel the city should be focusing on. The strategies, again, are the ones in the orange boxes. And so that's where you're going to be voting. Click on the words inside the box to make sure that your vote gets registered there. So did you want to add anything else, Gary, before we open that up?
I just had a question from Larry, and I think I know the answer, Dave, but I'm going to just read it to you and ask you to respond. So I presume Mural will be available over time, so I can get into it more.
Definitely, that link will be open. I'm not gonna change that link. So you'll definitely be able to come in and take a look at this. I think the intent though would be to actually send out the PDFs of those graphics that we sent over. or of the flow charts. And so I think Gary will figure out how to send that out to everybody. But yes, Mural will be open for, I think the link for a visitor is open for maybe 4 weeks, 4 weeks period of time.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. No, that's great. That's what we're hoping to have, at least, I'd say like 4 weeks of response to this. And so folks can look at it and potentially send it out to others as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so if somebody wants that, if somebody wants to send it out, I think you should be able to copy the link and send it, or just get in touch with me and I can add them into the master link. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and start the voting. Everybody gets 10 votes. It's stuff grayed out. That's because you're only voting on the orange boxes. So the other things kind of grayed out. But that way we make sure that we get the right votes in. So let's take about 20 minutes to kind of think through that.
Oh, let me unmute. Hey, Gary,
Yes.
this is Connie.
Hey, Connie.
I'm on my phone. And so all this left click and right click stuff is just not working for me. I'm sitting there drawing. I'm going nowhere. So
why didn't, what I was going to actually bring that up. If anybody had any issues with the mural, you can just, well, actually, two things. Just send me a message, or actually just just talk through it while others are looking. That's totally fine. But can you see? Are you able to see the information, Connie?
I am. I just can't do it. I can't vote or move boxes or anything because I tried, but I think they just wandered around. I don't know what they did. They disappeared. And
yeah,
I'm not.
So yeah, I'm not going to vote on this. So I would be happy to be your surrogate for voting.
Okay, so now for the first thing, I went for, of course, sort of natural environment and public transparency. But I don't know that I can look at it and talk to all y'all. Oh, wow, this is way above me on a phone. So I'm going to mute so I can yell at myself.
And remember though, Connie, to make it easier for you.
Yeah.
And really, I mean this, and because this is for others as well too.
In the most condescending way, I know.
No. That if you just want to look at this afterwards,
yeah,
and then provide it, that's fine. We'll how do I put this? It'll be fun to look at the sticky notes and the stuff tonight, but it's not the end of the story. We're going to add, it's additive, it's cumulative.
Okay, so is this particular meeting going to be recast at all? Is it recorded, or this is?
Yes, I'm recording. It unfortunately depends on my skill at recording and sending it to Thomas Rush, but they got my first one, so I think it's going to work.
Okay, cool. Because my skill obviously on my phone sucks. So I hope you're.
Yeah, no worries. This is again more for immediate feedback tonight. Yes. And then we will just keep getting more stuff. So absolutely not a problem. Thank you for voicing.
Awesome.
And if anybody else has that issue, now that Connie has opened that door, let us know if you want to vote and you're having trouble, please let us know, or do not, or you can keep it silent and then vote by yourself later. You can choose either path. Thank you, Connie. I really appreciate that. Hey, Dave, another question for you. I was trying to talk to Matt and Alan. They were not able to get into this, but I don't know if they clicked the link or not. So I'm gonna. But theoretically, if anybody should have been able to click the link that came onto the. Okay.
If anyone saw it in the chat down there, they should be able to click on it.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone else had that issue.
Hey, Matt and Alan, are you guys still on? by chance?
Was that?
Were you able to click the
Yeah.
link in the chat to go to the mural? That's how I got in.
Yeah, I just got
Oh, okay.
I just
Okay.
found it. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Operator
Yeah, it's
error.
working. I got it. I'm good.
Uh-oh, 2 operator errors, Dave. We'll have to talk with them
We
tomorrow.
failed.
Thankfully, Tim edits these recordings to take out things like that. All right.
By the way, staff won't be voting on this. We're just here to take a look at, see what residents are voting for.
Absolutely. And while everybody's just looking at this, we also would, and I guess you're guinea pigs in some way on this. Thank you. We would like to take this to our boards and commissions and probably not city council, but boards and commissions in this format. So we would, like your feedback on this and how ease of use and other things we might be able to improve. But I know that Megan, our former sustainability manager, used this quite a bit for her presentations, and it did seem to go over quite well.
Only got one vote left next time.
Oop, what was that, Larry?
I was just saying, I've only got one vote left and it's.
Uh-oh, uh-oh. And there's no vote trading here tonight. It's not like pollution trading. We don't do that here.
I may double up on something.
Oh, but Dave, you can double up on votes, right? You could put all of yours to 1 if you wanted to. Is that correct? If you're feeling.
If you wanted to, yeah. It's also maybe like the lottery. You probably shouldn't vote with pick the same numbers on multiple tickets.
So Gary, I figured out how this Connie. I figured out how to vote on that one. Cool. It was
On your phone?
on my phone.
Nice.
I
You
just
get
kept
an extra
holding down
prize.
on the item until it like voted, but then it voted like 6, so then I had to subtract it.
So let me ask, what type of phone are you using?
It's my old iPhone that matches my 92-year-old mother, so I can give her directions. She'll have to die before I can upgrade my phone. It'll be fun. Anyway.
Nice. Yeah, Dave, while I can't see how people voted, I found that you can see how many people how many votes people have left. So that's kind of cool. And who already voted.
Yeah, I've been watching that, moving around, seeing people take their votes back. That's good. I mean, reading through it all.
Can I ask a question about one of the points that I don't understand?
Sure.
So one of them is, and I've got it too small to read the letters, establish training with regulatory agencies to align priorities with current initiatives and expectations. What would be an example of that? Establish training with a regulatory agent.
Or, Dave, you can kind of expound on it to me. Maybe training isn't the best word, but it's making sure that we understand, like I would say, a two-way street. right? That we understand, we as a city, understand what regulations and rules or stuff they have in their place and what they need to push from their agencies, and vice versa, that they understand our constraints, our rates, and our city interests. So we have a dialogue, a kind of a, and Dave, you have to, I was going to talk to you about the training. So yeah, heads up, like we're kind of going off script here, but that was my idea, is that this training is that we understand each other's worlds, and we're working through that a little better to understand our full pictures. Dave, I didn't know, Matt, you got your hand up there too.
Yeah, I was just gonna elaborate on that. Or for an example, would be like Fish and Wildlife, where we meet with them on a regular basis to kind of explain our goals. So we're not just meeting on like a project specific basis. So they know that we're not coming in with just needs for a project, but we have an overall picture that might more align with their goals and objectives, or at least they understand where we're coming from. So we're not just coming in late in the ball game with some goals for a one project.
Dave, does that resonate with you, both what Matt and I said?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the other aspect, like right now, is a very pertinent time for the conversation with the new permits already starting conversation, right? And so, I do think probably the training phrase might need to get reworded in there, but really it is trying to build a tighter relationship over to the regulators, and that you kind of, they understand your goals, you understand their goals. And I think that also plays into the grant item under the fiscal responsibility is, if you really understand what their goals are and what they're targeting, you can make sure that when you're applying for grants, that you're proposing projects that align with where they're looking to support funding.
That makes sense. I'm hearing that as mutual transparency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
I love that. And that's,
my last
for
question.
better or for worse, that's kind of what I'm bringing, at least my tenure here, is, that transparent, transparent, collaborative nature with our regulators. I don't, Larry, I don't have a problem disagreeing with folks, but I want to have a good discussion, right? I want to make sure we're understanding where we're both coming from. And then I feel better disagreeing at that point, and then raising or elevating the issue as needed. But especially from my peers at the regulatory agencies, let's just make sure we understand each other. I love it. Mutual transparency. That's wonderful. Gonna coin that. Thank you.
Mhm. Well, thanks for the explanation. And as I mentioned, it earned my vote. Good approach.
Hey, this is Connie again. Do you
Yeah.
have consistency in there amongst, so this is consistency within the city, because right now we're doing all this code rewrite, and I'm finding as I read all the levels, it's super inconsistent with each other at this point in time. In this initial planning session, are you doing a consistency review of some sort? Because I'm finding that is top tier for me immediately.
What could you? I'm not. I
Well,
didn't quite.
I'm reading the new draft critical area ordinance,
Yes.
and then I'm reading the draft changes for the Shoreline Master Program,
Yes.
and then I'm listening to you all, and it seems to me that y'all, it's like this layers of an onion, but your onions are on the next block from each other sometimes. And so, is there any way to immediately before anything is done to ensure that that onion is tightly layered and cohesive? I don't see that this isn't the future, this is now, and it's hard to get
Right.
at now when you're doing a planning document.
I know, Matt, you got your hand up, but let me say one thing and then go to you. And I really appreciate that, Connie. And I don't know if we have that necessarily in here, but I'm just speaking from direct experience on Title 18, right? On what I'm working on and other issues. And I sorry to hear how that's sounding to you or how the results are coming out, but I wanted to let you know that internally, at least CPD, so Community Planning and Development, Public Works, and Parks are really working well together, and it's been transparent inside. And I will dare say, as you know, I've been in this business 30 years, and this is the best experience I've had over the past few months working on something like Title 18 and Title 16. We're working on with collaboration internally. So, so where does that leave us? You're not seeing those results necessarily. So I guess that's something, Dave, I would put in a gap on here is, there's two things, right? One, that we're working internally together, right? Make sure that, but that the public sees that we're working, because that's what I'm kind of hearing from Connie, that she's not seeing maybe the manifestation of that. And then, Matt, why don't you add to that before we
Yeah, and I'll probably put my foot in my mouth, but
hey, open? This is the discussion we want to have.
But one of the first steps of and why we kind of started this whole master document for planning is that we wanted to kind of consolidate all the policies that we have in the city, because that is one thing that we identified, was that we have a lot of policies that are in different documents, and they might be slightly difficult to achieve spread out throughout the city. So this document, part of the objective that Osborne's helping us with is to at least consolidate those. Public Works is not the keeper of a lot of the documents, so we're not responsible for changing those. We have the opportunity to weigh in. However, we do have the opportunity to at least consolidate them and then see how we can achieve those in certain time frames. So that was part of our original scope and goal for this document, was to begin that effort. And I guess we can, hopefully Dave or Gary can elaborate on that piece of it. That was definitely one of the things that we're working on.
Yeah, Connie, let me try this, because I really want to get at this as a potential. This is a strategy or an action. I'm not sure what it is, but but where we want to get to, as what one of our colleagues in CPD, Stephen, I think I'm going to butcher his last name, Padua, will be leading the comp plan update, and we're going to be updating the utility section. And I'm riffing off with what Matt just said here, is we want to get that document to be really clean, because there is some inconsistency, Connie, with what you said with the Shoreline master plan, what's in there right now, what's right in the code, and we're trying to work through that. So Dave, the strategy, the action is to make, is that consistency, right? That that the city's comprehensive plan is aligned with the master plan and strategic plan. That's somehow where we've got to write that, because that's exactly, Connie, I think that's kind of what you're getting at, that they all should flow down from each other, and there shouldn't be this glaring inconsistency between plans or code. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
that's and now I'm going to give you the swoggle. We are not good at going between policy and then code language. And so when you talk comprehensive plan policies,
Right.
not implementation language, it's not enforceable. And so oddly,
Yes.
we are starting with the implementation, and then we're going to policy. We're creating our Title 18 code, which impacts you all. But
Right.
then we're going to do our comprehensive plan update to bring us to the policies that are supposed to be informing our code, right? So it's backwards, confusing, but they all, in the end point, they all need to align, and beyond aligning, they actually have to align elegantly so that we don't get sued, and it's fairly easy for people to do the right thing and make it good. And so that is an emphasis point for me at right now as I'm grinding through acres of implementation language.
Okay, no, I like that.
Yeah, I think that falls under, I mean, we already have the objective underneath the collaboratively planned future utility needs. The first objective in there is to coordinate utility planning with other city programs and departments. And so I think you would just add another strategy in there related to that topic. And I do think part of the, oh, go ahead, Connie.
Wait. And so what you're missing is implementation, right?
Mhm.
So it seems like you're trying to strategize and you're trying to do the upper level things, which is really how you're supposed to do it first. But right now we're writing our regulations.
Yep.
And so we actually have to pay close attention to our regulations before we do the rest of it, because otherwise we're going to have to go back in, I don't know, however long it takes us to go back and actually do the implementation. And I don't know how you do that. I'm just here to tell you that right now we're looking at implementation before you actually get your policies and strategies in place. And it's not gonna be easy to make them all work together when you do your regulations first. So I think that's my concern. If that makes sense, you have to actually look at implementation now because it's happening now.
Right. And no, so as an example, right before before this plan is really going to be complete, we're going to have Title 18 is, let me just rephrase that a little bit. Title 18, which is the code, is being reviewed and rewritten right now with public input. And again, that's at what you would kind of call the grassroots or the implementation end. And then we have to go back to the top. So somehow, ideally we'd have started at the top and gone to the bottom, but for the reasons that be, we're working with that very detailed code right now. So our challenge then, Connie, right, is to be able to somehow go back and make sure that higher level is consistent with what we ended up with at the detailed code level. And then hopefully, right, going forward, it would be always from the top down, strategy to the code. So we're in that, I guess we're in this transition period, kind of, I'm just kind of riffing off what you're just kind of saying, right? Is we are doing the code right now as Title 18, we're doing Title 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you have high hopes. We've never gotten the cart actually before the horse like we're supposed to in the 25 years we've been doing it. So that's a goal. You don't want to get implementation because it follows an outdated strategy or comprehensive plan goal. What you want is you want to get the implementation right now, and then you can take it to good, because otherwise we're just going to get crap supporting crap. What we want is good implementation now, and then you can backfill your strategy and policy.
Okay, very good. Okay, it's clicking now, so thank you. That was great. So we will be working on that, and I can guarantee you're going to see that in the next draft somehow. We'll put it all heads together. Joy.
Good evening, everybody. Joy here. Thanks, Gary. I wanted to kind of go off of what Connie was saying. I share some of her concerns as well, as somebody who is actively reading the Stormwater Master Plan, the Shoreline Master Plan. And it sounds like this is something that you guys are currently reviewing, but maybe not necessarily behind the current draft. Is that accurate, that you guys are still in the process of looking right now at the Shoreline Master Plan?
Yeah. To kind of lay things out how I understand them. The Shoreline Master Plan was recently, and you'll have to forgive me, updated or in the process of final review last year or I thought it was completed in 2021. But Title 18 is what I was referring to. That's going on right now and is ripe. That's led by CPD, Community Planning Development.
Yes.
And then we're also, Public Works is leading 16, 12, and 13, minimal updates, not the whole code, but for flood management and stormwater. So those are the two that are really open right now that Connie, at least that I understood from Connie, the codes that are really open right now.
Yes, regarding Title 18, the Shoreline Master Program is currently being reviewed and has a preliminary draft.
Got it.
Council has asked us to look at 3 specific things. However, the entire Shoreline Master Program is up for review right now.
Okay.
Because we have a narrow scope, it's very helpful to be able to have Public Works weigh in, because there's a lot of branches that are being involved that really do need to have a coordination with other policies and plans. And
Got it.
implementation right now isn't necessarily being a priority. So it would be great to be able to have the eyes and ears of your team right now on the draft process to be able to weigh in. And I'm curious to know how that coordination is happening,
Got
as it was a question I was planning on asking tomorrow night to my staff separately.
A really good question, and hopefully a really good answer for you too. As part of this work, we and this was an early part of this, and we've haven't brought this out because this was going to come back later this year. But we looked at all of the policies across the city documents that had relation to stormwater, wastewater, water resources, and by far the largest was component was the Shoreline Master Program. A little bit in the comp plan, and then some in our master plans. And Joy, what we did was we listed all those out, and at least internally we have reviewed and documented where there are inconsistencies across all those documents. So and that was the really cross-city team that has looked into that. So that was CPD, Parks, and Public Works. So we have done that already, and that's been shared internally. So I think we're all on the same page for that. So I guess what you're asking for, just making sure that that from a Public Works perspective, that we're just reminding our colleagues in CPD that we have that information, and we want to kind of correct as needed.
Excellent. Thank you, Gary. That's very helpful. Thanks,
Absolutely.
everybody.
And I'd be happy to follow up with you on that too, Joy, if you need.
Great. Thank you.
Well, it looks like whoever was going to be voting on the mural has voted.
Yes.
So I can close that, but if I close it, then people can't log in later and vote. I can close it. We can see where people voted, then I can reopen another session in case somebody wants to log in later to vote.
Let's do that, Dave. I think that would be great.
Okay.
So when you reopen it, you'll still have those previous votes?
It will be a different session, and so,
right.
but we'll have that information still.
Yes,
It's
to
just,
add on.
yeah, we'll have to use calculators to add it together.
We can still do that.
But I can vote again, sneaky.
Hey, Larry. There's always one in the crowd, isn't there?
You know what? I could have voted 10 times with my bopping in and out, because every time it gave me a different. I was all kinds of different critters, so I could have, but I didn't.
Thankfully, we have high ethical standards here in Issaquah.
We're trying.
Well, those are very zoomed out, but let's see here if we close that, we can see. It looks like develop a strategic asset management plan on a 40-year horizon to drive maintenance and rehab was.
That's the 4 votes?
Yep. And there was a develop a grant tracking process. That one got 3 votes. Incorporate planning for treating pollution generating in the car. Good one.
Yeah, are you able to, they're really small on my screen, Dave?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I closed that, and I'm just looking at the.
Okay.
Can you, if you close that, can you see the total score?
Yes. Now, thank you, Dave. Sorry.
Yeah.
Operator.
Yeah, they
error.
were really small.
Yes. Okay, got it.
It's cool to see so much kind of overlap in the voting. So a lot of people have the good pulse on where the important needs are in the city.
Are we supposed to be able to see something?
Oh, are you not?
Well, I'm
Oh,
on
you're
my phone. I'm seeing you guys peering very happy,
staring at stuff.
squinty eyes because you're old, but that's all I see.
Okay,
Sorry,
here I
Dave,
can.
There we
James,
go.
I don't think I've ever met you before, so just there you go. Oh, perfect. I can see something now.
Yeah, sorry. I forget that mural, while it is for everyone can see it, I should still share my screen when I'm looking at things on it.
Yeah, so Dave, could maybe let's back up. Could you share on your screen now the one with the 4?
Yes. So the one with the 4 was develop a strategic asset management plan on a 40-year horizon.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. And then we can go through the 3s. One was create a volunteer, was that one related to creating a volunteer program for the public to actively engage.
Okay.
And develop a root cause analysis of local flooding issues.
Okay.
Got 3 votes. Develop a grant tracking process that identifies potential funding sources. Got 3 votes.
Excellent.
Prepare a stream and habitat protection program that identifies critical sensitive opportunities within the city to allow for partnerships and acquisitions. Got 3 votes. Incorporate planning for treating the pollution generating impervious surface in the CARA into the utility master plan. Got 3 votes. Improve citywide water quality monitoring and assessment to better inform utility system master planning. Got 3 votes. And then developing a budgeting framework that incorporates staffing needs based on the asset management planning. Got 3 votes. I would say that most of those are probably what I would have voted for. So
Yeah. So
I didn't have to vote,
let me
but-
explain, and then we'll maybe take any final comments, and then gosh, I would really like to get this out to a larger audience too. But I really like these results from a professional perspective. But what this really helps with, and this goes back to the plan do assess, is the vote the numbers with the highest votes are what I would like to. Again, we'll be sharing these with the boards and commissions, right? But let's just assume that the boards and commissions agree with all of these higher votes. This is then what we would be presenting to City Council for our 23-24 operating program. This is what staff and consultants will be working on. That would be what we would be taking forward, what would be implemented. That's the idea of this. It's not to say that anything that you guys didn't vote on is not great. Maybe it is, but it's not the right time. But that's how we would approach this, right? And I can see this happening. Again, if you go back through that cycle, a community event like this every time, right? Before we go to through a budget process, is we bring back this strategic plan and we have another discussion. of what's the priority right now? How do we move forward? But then what we'll have in the future is how we're doing for each of these, ideally, right? How we're doing, performing on each of them. So at some point we may feel like, yeah, we've done enough for this, so let's hold off on this. Let's go to something else. So really appreciate that. But that's how we're going to actually really use it this year. I'm going to, make that commitment on camera to all of you, is that, these numbers, and again, we may have people add to them. So these numbers, priorities may change as we go through our presentations. But this is exactly what we want, is helping us hone in on what is most important to you right now. So thank you very much.
So Gary, this is Connie again.
Yes.
Can I say what I think you said?
Sure.
In my interpretation of how the city works? So
Yes,
what
please.
you have done is you have basically created a grouping of topics that you're asking people to vote on, which then will prioritize not only capital projects, but potential work program items to what the community thinks is important. Is that an accurate rendition?
Yes, in my mind, and just a quick budget 101 for folks, at least for the utilities. I can't speak for this for the whole city, but there is our capital program, which again, Alan and Matt are leading on their end. But then there is all of the operating dollars, at least for the utilities, which is my staff time, working consultant support, and equipment and such. So that's the piece that this would also be fueling. You're exactly right. Which is again, which you see every year in our budget proposal when it talks about, for each department talks about what their highlights are each year. And some of them are capital and some of them are operating. So yes, that's exactly right, Connie, in the end.
Okay, so then my comment is, can we have every department do this, please, 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 because this is brilliant.
Thank you very much. And I think folks do, but we're kind of taking the lead on putting it on paper here. Because from my experience being at other cities, some larger, some smaller, this cerebral work does occur, but it's that we're taking the time to actually get it on paper and having it with a repeatable, maybe not repeatable process isn't the right word, but putting then performance. I think that's the thing you're going to see next, is putting then performance metrics to these that we can keep over time, so we don't have to keep recreating this every couple of years, right? So we have this strategic plan that we can keep working from. So thank you. I appreciate those comments, Connie. All right, Mr. Dave and Francesca, I think we have gotten exactly what we needed and probably more in these comments.
Yeah.
Anything in closing from Matt, Alan, Dave, Francesca?
All I'll say is I'll keep the mural open. I'll open a new voting session. I would encourage you. I know that there was about 20 people that were signed up to attend this. It might be worthwhile to send that out to people. Ask them to review it. Ask them to try to go in and vote if they're able to.
Dave, can I Matt, you got your hand up, but Dave, let me ask you something on that. What am I trying to ask? The folks that have the link today that were here, are they able to? The reason I'm asking this is, let me just back up. With WebEx, you can't share links. You have to get a link directly from the organizer. I'm wondering if that's something we need to check on. If like Joy or Larry wanted to send this to somebody, like, hey, please take a look at this and vote. Would that be able to happen, or is that something we need to check on?
they should be able to get it because it's just a link. And as long as I don't do anything to change that mural, that link stays active. And so as long as anybody gets that link, they should be able to log into it.
Okay.
I
'cause then we
just-
can
I
also-
just copied and pasted it into an email. This is
Yeah.
Connie. So
Okay.
whether somebody else will be able to open it is beyond my control, but I got it.
Let us know, Connie, if they have trouble. That would really, I would appreciate that. And then
That
we'll
would
also
that
see
would
if we can
assume
get
you'd
this on the
answer them.
website too.
Okay.
Mr. Matt Ellis, closing
Yeah,
comments.
just if there are gaps that you guys, if anyone sees gaps or things that you'd like to include, that we did our best to kind of have everything as inclusive as we could. But if there are things that you see, please reach out to Gary, Alan, or I, and we can always put that in as an idea. We could also, I also was wondering if we wanted to post the results to the website somehow, so that way it's also provided to the larger community, kind of what the ultimate results from the meeting were.
I like that, Matt. I think I need to have a little some time with our communication staff to see how I can help. As I know they have a lot going on, there might be a way that I can help do that too. So thank you. Great idea.
Question for David.
Yeah.
Are my sticky notes on the live version now?
Yes, they are.
Okay,
Yep.
'cause it turns out that I was putting sticky notes into the old version, and I don't know if it's stuck or not.
Yeah, I'm seeing them in there.
But if they're there. Yeah, also on the communication issue, one of the things that I do, and I'll do it from this session, is put together what I call one pagers that I then send out to a bunch of fishy friends. Alan on this session gets those, for instance. And my observation is that there is a rush of information here. And a lot of people aren't going to check in to a 2-hour sit-down session. They're not going to listen to the video, sorry. And so I put out highlights and encourage people with links to go dig in if they need to. So anything on the communications front that summarizes that sort of thing and then makes the detail available for those who want to dig is a big plus.
Thank you, Larry. And that really, I think speaks to some of our objectives and strategies. And I know it's not just Public Works. It's all departments really in all cities. It's not just Issaquah. How do we best reach and engage with our community? Given time constraints everybody has. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, but we appreciate that. And we're always, and I guess why I'm saying that I think it's somewhat embedded in some of our strategies as we need to figure that out. I think some of those got some votes today too. But that communication, what we're doing, how we get your input, how we engage you. And again, just speaking from utilities, absolutely. But I think that's a city issue that we're all grappling with and want to do better at. So your comments really are poignant. Thank you.
Hey, Gary, this is Joy again. Last meeting, Alan and his team did a really fabulous job of working us through the maps of different areas and wanting feedback. And I will say, while I found the walkthrough to be very informative, when I actually went to go and do it, I have not submitted comments yet because it was very time consuming for when I was able to sit down and to truly address it. And without wanting to give your team too much work, I will say that I found this format to be very easy to engage in. And so if there was a way to somehow be able to say whether it was divided by areas, sections, neighborhoods in Issaquah, whether it was divided by creeks, this may be an interesting way to be able to get more feedback from what you guys were interested on last time. And maybe I'm the anomaly and you guys got a lot of feedback. But I found this format to be something that was easy to dip into. And obviously it works nice to be able to have in conjunction with the map to be able to see, but it's an interesting idea when we're thinking about how do we engage the community at large? How do we draw more people into the process? The city likes to do a lot of surveys, obviously on their website to try to drum up more information for boards, commissions, and for council. So it's just an interesting idea of trying to think about how do we cross mediums. And so
Yep.
maybe may or may not be relevant. Feel free to
No,
take
it's
or
very
take or leave the
relevant, Joy.
comment.
I just, a light bulb just went off, and the extra step we could have taken with that, which, Alan and I, we talked through it so much, but we thought we had a good thing going, would be to take, to put those project descriptions that actually you can look at on the map, right, into some type of mural presentation to make it a little easier to digest. We just, and Alan can speak to it too, but we thought being able to look at the map and at the information at the same time would really, be spot on. But I definitely see what you're getting with that. If you could maybe toggle between the two of something more, it's not static isn't the right word, but just in this type of format, in this mural format, that you could go between the map and this. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I think the deadline was today. Actually, we gave folks 2 weeks to provide the feedback, and I think maybe we might want to extend that, Gary, and consider because we received so far two of the attendees at that meeting last month have provided feedback. So not a, it is a lot of work to go through that map. I realize that there's so much information there with the spreadsheets. So yeah, I'm always looking for ways to improve it for sure.
Yeah, this is Connie, and I went clicking through all this trying to find things that I could input because I wasn't able to get to the whatever the last meeting was that had some sort of a map, and it wasn't on the website. So I'm not really sure where it is that I could have accessed it, because there's nothing I like more than arcane city government opinion gathering.
Right. Well, yeah, it wasn't on the, I think we just sent it out to the folks that attended. I believe that's right, Gary. We just sent out the link to the map and the spreadsheets and an explanation of how to proceed with the prioritization or, rankings or whatever. But
yeah, I am working with Thomas and Tim to get that on the web as well too. So yeah, that's good. Okay, so what I'm kind of hearing too, like let's extend that, because we're gonna keep this mural open. We'll keep them to the same dates. So Dave, we'll work on that together, and then yeah, like Joy, I really like your comment though. I think there could be that. And it might, if we can't do it for this, it would at least be for the boards and commissions where we, yeah, I'm visualizing it. I can't quite know how we're going to do it, but because I love that map. The map is awesome in a lot of ways, but we need, what I'm hearing from you, Joy, and from Connie to a lesser degree, but somehow being able to that after you, look through the map, understand where the projects are in space, then go to something kind of like we had today, so you can kind of vote across the board. So some kind of summary sheet, I guess, is what I'm hearing, Joy, right?
Yeah, what I'm finding is that it certainly was, it wasn't for lack of for work on your guys' part, right? The map is phenomenal. The only struggle I had with the map is from when I come at it, I like to know what estimates are, right? I like to be able to weigh prioritization of different projects by saying, well, how many partnerships are we going to have, which means, a better access to grant funding. I like to be able to see what's an estimate of what we're going to actually need out of pocket to complete this, what's a time frame. I'm constantly adding those things in, right? So I was almost wishing there was this other tab on every single project. So once I was able to get over that, I certainly got into the weeds on it, right? Clicking through the map, it was great, but it was hard for me to then be able to do it as quickly as I did in this venue. And so what had occurred to me is that if there was some way to be able to say, give those, here's our top 10, in this format was a lot easier, because I'm one of the people who registered, attended, and have not given Alan my comments like I wanted to. So in case there was other people like me of trying to figure out a way to be able to close the loop other than just me needing to do my homework. So
it's almost in, when you said in the weeds, that really struck a chord, because it's almost, if we with the capital projects, if we would have, done a mural-like thing. So folks, if they didn't want to get in the weeds, they could just look at that. But then for somebody like you and me and others, you could then go to that detail to the map if you really wanted to really dig into it. So that, yeah, that's kind of what's playing in my head, is that the map is, par excellence for those that really want to go into that level of detail,
Granular.
but having
Yeah.
something a little bit higher up to at least do top 10s. Okay, appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Okay, well, thank you so much, and you will see us coming back as we finalize both the 2 master plans and the strategic plan. So over the next few months, you'll see Alan again leading the storm and surface water master plan, Matt leading the wastewater master plan, and then myself, Dave, and Francesca with the water resource strategic plan, all working together. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your feedback today. This has been excellent.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.